The next button, Patient Antimicrobial Use and HAI Data, is about all the information on the patient form, Form A. On the top of the form is the hospital code. This is already filled in automatically. Next you have the ward code and the survey date on this ward. You can select either of these simply by clicking on the correct ward and pressing the double arrows. We will do data entry for ICU 1. Next you fill in the patient counter. The plus sign just in front of the patient counter is to add 1 to the last patient counter. For instance, if the last patient was 6,578 and you press plus, you will get 79 on the patient counter filled in automatically. This will only work if you have all patient forms in the correct order and you have no missing numbers. In all other cases, we advise you to simply type in the number of the patient counter. Next, you are asked to give the internal patient code. You will not find this on the patient form. The next field is the internal patient code. You will not find this code on the patient form, Form A. In fact, this field has not come up anywhere in the protocol, so we will elaborate a little bit exactly what this code means. Although Belgian hospitals will not fill in this code, what it would be is the internal patient code. For instance, if you use a certain code in your electronic database to identify a patient, that is the code you would use in this field. We advise you to prepare a list that connects this patient internal code to the patient counter. The patient counter is the code that will be used in the PPS. This is the code that is used on a daily basis in the hospital. For anonymity reasons, we cannot let the Belgian hospitals use this patient code in the PPS. Therefore, you will be using the patient counter, which is completely anonymous. However, if for some reason we will at some point need to ask the hospitals to verify data, we'll do this by giving them the patient counter. The hospitals will then themselves transform this patient counter into the patient internal code because they've kept the list, and then they will be able to look up the data for the patient. In conclusion, we can say that you will fill in the patient counter. You will yourself have prepared a list that links the patient counter to the patient internal code, but you will not fill in the internal code. We have again filled in the example for an 80-year-old male that was hospitalized on the 22nd of July, and his consultant patient specialty will be infectiology. In other words, this is a 80-year-old male on an ICU ward that is treated by a doctor that has a specialty of infectious diseases. The patient is on antimicrobials and the patient has an active HAI. As you can see, the two buttons behind antimicrobials and HAI have now lit up. This means that you could start by filling in the right side of the patient form. Last part, however, we will first continue with the left part of the patient form. This can be filled in under the second tab, Risk Factors specific to the patient protocol. Again, we simply copy from the patient form press save and go back to the General tab. On the main tab, we will now fill in the antimicrobial data and the HAI data. We will begin with the antimicrobial data. In our example, the patient was taking amoxicillin. As you can see, this list is sorted alphabetically on generic name. Our patient is taking it for a community-acquired infection, is to be marked, and the diagnosis is to be marked under the next field. Whether or not the reason was in the notes can be marked in the next. Again, this is simply copying the fields that you marked on the patient form, patient A. On the patient form, form A. If your patient is taking several antibiotics, press save and press the yellow sign. Otherwise, simply press save and press exit. As you can see, once you start a new form, you will have to finish it. In our case, we will simply exit. Next, we will fill in the healthcare-associated infection data. Again, begin by pressing the yellow sign and fill in the HAI code. Our patient had a PN1. The HAIs are grouped together. We did not have a relevant device in situ, and the HAI was not present at admission. The date of onset was the 28th of July, and the origin was the current hospital. The BSI origin, as you can see, cannot be filled in because the case definition is not BSI. We found one microorganism, Staphylococcus aureus, and this had resistance phenotype code 1. This is all the information that is written on the patient form. Therefore, you can now save. In case there is a second HAI, you will press the yellow sign, and otherwise you will press exit. You've now finished all the information from the patient form. Therefore, you will press save and exit. The next buttons in the main menu, data export, will not be used. Neither is the button translate and the button quick you can use to exit the entire Helix WinNet program. This is the end of our presentation for Helix WinNet data entry. The last part of our presentation will only show you how to forward the information in the database to the WIV ESP.